Welcome into the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Emory, my guy, last time, me and you, two-man game for the national championship. I'm your host, Richard Johnson, my man, Emory Hunt, joining me to break down the biggest game in college football this season for all the marbles. Let's get into it. Indiana and Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. It's a Miami home game, but trust, Indiana fans will be in that thing packing it out, and it'll be a very, very interesting atmosphere. I think it's going to be one of the best atmospheres in modern college football. Emory, before we get into the specific pick of the game, and before we talk about the game specifically, let's talk about both teams. Indiana, right in the macro, this rags to riches story came out of nowhere over the last 2 years to be one of college football's best teams. And then you have Miami, a generation of frustration, a generation of not being what they once were. How do you see both these two teams coming into this game?
Firstly, I got to give you credit and props because you ain't lied to us one bit this offseason or during this playoff season. You've been nailing all these blowouts and who's going to move on. Richard has definitely worn the crown of king predictor right here. But when you think about Indiana's journey and how they've gone from a doormat or an afterthought to now looking like a perennial power, I made a joke a couple of days ago that there are 2-year-olds right now that only know Indiana being in the postseason. Think about how crazy that sounds, where they have, got out the gate last year, got to the postseason, was bowed out by Notre Dame, and now they're here in the national championship game. But it shows you that you can win anywhere. If you can develop talent, identify and develop. I think the development of talent is crucial here for the Indiana point of things and point of view. And again, people worry about those ticket prices, like, they underestimate that Jane Pauley money, that Quinn Buckner money, that Calbert Chaney money. They underestimate that Isaiah Thomas money. You know what I'm saying? So those people have been waiting a long time to really support Indiana football. And here they are going to be down there in droves. And for Miami, it's just about finding the right mix. They've always had talent, but now they got all the talent on the right page on one accord. And that's why they look like how they've looked the last 2 years. They got the defense better this year. They got the quarterback that's managing the game. And the offensive line has been the offensive line. So they finally got all the pieces all on the same page together. That's why we're seeing them in this national title game.
Emory's going to break off a few for me so that I can go to the game. Big bro, I appreciate you. We'll talk this weekend. Let's talk about this game specifically and how these two teams match up. I think specifically as far as Miami's offense and Indiana's defense is concerned, I think it's a bad matchup for Miami, specifically in the passing game. I was at Miami's game earlier in the season against Louisville, where I watched Carson Beck, Miami's quarterback, throw turnovers in droves, interceptions in droves. When you consider what Indiana does post-snap, they have so much post-snap movement. They are not the biggest team up front on the defensive line. They make up for it with agility. They make up for it with stunts and twists and games. They make up for it by simulating pressure. They'll put 7 guys on the line of scrimmage and they'll drop 3 out into coverage and they'll bring 4 into the pass rush. It's up to you, quarterback and offensive line, to figure out which players are actually coming in, which ones are dropping. That causes confusion, that causes indecision, and that can lead to turnovers. I don't like that matchup for Miami because, again, I have watched Carson Beck be fooled time and time again, both at Georgia and at Miami, by that style of defense. Emory, when Miami has the ball, what are you looking for?
It's about being consistent and staying committed, Richard. And when you think about where they have an advantage, right there in the trenches along the offensive line, can you be who you are consistently, even if it's not popping or working right away? If they can stay consistent in running the football, I've said this before, whether we're talking about college football or pro football, the attempts are more effective in some cases than the actual yardage. And I feel like if Miami can stay consistent and committed to the run game, even if it may not be working right out of the gate, trust your defense to get some stops, but try to shrink this ball game by leaning on that lighter defensive front. And then by the time we get to the late third quarter, fourth quarter, then you'll start to see Mark Fletcher start popping some runs because they've worn down that defensive front 7. So I think that's going to be the biggest key for Miami, more so than Carson Beck. Obviously, don't turn the ball over. Just hit your layups, and they should be fine from an efficiency standpoint. But this is really about whether or not they can stay committed to running the football, even if it's not working early on.
Spoken like a true running back. Miami has committed to running the ball in the first 3 rounds of the college football playoffs, and obviously they've done it quite well. It's been impressive what Mario Cristobal has built with that offensive line infrastructure in front of Carson Beck and Mark Fletcher, paving the way. 4 homegrown talents, one from the transfer portal into this season. You knew they were going to be good, led by Francis Mauigoa on the right side at right tackle. That is an NFL draft pick in the waiting. I think that obviously when we talk about Miami's offense, we have to have a conversation about Malachi Toney. What this kid can do for the Canes is incredible. 18 years old, should be in high school, was a quarterback in high school down in South Florida, and comes out of the box, quite frankly, as about as polished a slot receiver as you can find in college football. Can run every route on the route tree. Tremendous footwork, willing and capable blocker as well. Complete player is Malachi Toney. Emory, what have you seen from Malachi Toney, who in my opinion is the engine, is the focal point to Miami's passing offense?
Think about what you just said, Richard. He's the engine and the focal point as an 18-year-old true freshman that steps up big in the biggest of moments, whether they're asking him to run with the football, catch the football, throw the football. He's making senior level decisions. He shows you that he's ready for the moment, whenever that moment may come or whenever that moment may be. And again, this is somebody that is just a freshman on campus. And so however he goes, so does Miami. They're going to need him to make a play on special teams or within the regular offense in order for them to have success. And when you think about this list right here, most receptions in the season, some big names on that list, Malachi Toney is just doing a phenomenal job. And I've been impressed with his situational football awareness of knowing when and where. Some guys just have that sense of timing of when to make the big play, and he just make the big play. And that's what we're seeing from Toney. A play doesn't care who makes it. It just wants to be made. And he's the guy that's stepping up every time to make that play.
On the flip side, Indiana, a wagon so far this season, especially on offense with the Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza. He is as accurate as you will see in college football. The hookups that he has specifically to Elijah Surratt on the back shoulder plays, they are undefendable balls. Miami's got some injuries at cornerback on the defensive side of the ball. Xavier Lucas will be out for the first half as well after a targeting penalty sustained in the semifinal against Ole Miss. Indiana, to me, incredible on offense because of how efficient they are and how much they execute. They don't do a ton of funky stuff. They don't come out in a bunch of different formations and throw a bunch of stuff at you. They pretty much run what they run. Riley Nowakowski at tight end is kind of a move chess piece, can be an H-back type player, and you can put him in a lot of different places and alignments, but that's about as funky as it comes from Indiana. They're straight ahead playing ball, and they are just better than you. They've been better than Oregon twice, better than Ohio State, better than Alabama, the highest level teams that they've played so far this season. Emory, when Indiana has the ball, what do you see?
It's funny, Richard, because they are a high school coach's dream that preach, hey, you just got to execute. If we go out there and execute, we could win the ball game. And then you hear that over and over again, and you just know at some point in time, players got to make plays. But they are showing you at the collegiate level, at the Power Four level, that execution really can win you ball games. It's very refreshing to see Indiana just break the huddle, get to the line of scrimmage, and run a play. Like, when the last time we seen that? Like, probably 1996, right? Like, most teams got to go to the line, look to the side, change the plays like 74 times, and then we had 3 seconds on the play clock. Indiana gets there, gets to the line of scrimmage, and run the play, and they just execute. And because their execution is at a high level, it forces you to play disciplined ball and out execute them. And we know some teams can't handle that type of pressure. They can't handle that level of discipline. And that's where they get into a mistake. And that's where Indiana capitalizes, i.e., first play of the game against Oregon. And then after that, it was all she wrote. So they're highly efficient in what they do. They execute at a high level, and they're supremely disciplined on both sides of the ball.
I have to talk about Miami, obviously, on defense. Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, edge rushers supreme for Miami. When we talk about the matchup between Indiana's offensive line against Miami's defensive line, that is the focal point. Are they going to be able to win, Indiana, one-on-one matchups against Mesidor and Bain?
That's going to be the biggest key. And if you're Mesidor and Bain, it's the same rules apply versus Mendoza that you had against Trinidad Chambliss. You got to play push versus pressure. Mendoza, although it looks ugly, very Bernie Kosar-like, he be getting out of dodge and be scrambling for yards. So you got to make sure you can't open the back door and allow him to escape and get outside and pick up those cheap first downs. You got to rush to and then collapse around him as opposed to rushing past him. So it's going to be about their discipline in their rush lanes, whether or not they're able to affect the pocket around Fernando Mendoza.
All right, Emory, let's pick it. Spread -8.5, total 47.5. I'm taking Indiana. I'm taking Indiana -8.5, and I'm taking this game under. I actually think Miami is going to short circuit a few times. They're going to fail to score. They're going to get some turnovers, and I think this game ends up going under. But I do think Indiana will cover that 8.5.
I'm with you on the under. I do like this game to be about 24-19, 24-20, but I'm taking Miami plus the points. I feel like we should get a very good, I would say great championship game that'll come down to the wire. I just can't see 8.5. Although I am talking to the king over there that's called blowouts all postseason long, but I just think we'll get a great national championship game, or at least I'm hoping for one. So I'm gonna take Miami plus 8.5.
Man, I really do hope we get a great game down there in South Florida. All right, when we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to talk some more props and a little bit more analysis on the title game. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. All right, Emory, let's do some quick props before we do some more analysis on the national championship game. I'll start us off. Let's talk first touchdown scorers in this game. Who will go into the end zone for the first time for these teams? I'm going to start with Mark Fletcher. I think Mark Fletcher for Miami, if they are going to have success, they're going to have to control the ball like they did against Ohio State, for instance. And maybe he gets loose, does Fletcher, like he did against Texas A&M, for instance. We know what Miami wants to do. They want to come straight downhill at you in the run game, give the ball to Fletcher. I think they will try to do that early and often in this game. They will try to, as you said earlier, lean on an Indiana front seven that is smaller than they are. They're going to try to bully that team. And so I think Fletcher, first touchdown scorer, is the way to go there.
I don't hate that, honestly, because I think we'll get to one of my Fletcher props later. But I feel like when Indiana has a football, like you said, you know what they're going to do. And even though I hate the back shoulder throw, it's almost like rewarding quarterbacks for an underthrown ball, just like a deep ball in the NFL that's
not where Mendoza throws it.
I mean, but he's thrown it to Elijah Surratt, so I think that's who's going to get the first touchdown because it's going to the same spot. He throws the velocity, and Surratt makes these incredible catches on these back shoulder throws. You know, you can't survive on that, but Indiana must be living right because they tend to do that. But Surratt, I think, will get that first touchdown because if they got the football and they're inside the 20-yard line, guess what's going to happen? You know it's coming. Everybody in the stadium knows is about to happen, and he still finds a way to haul in for a touchdown. So that's my pick for first touchdown scorer, Elijah Surratt, on a back shoulder pass, once again, from Mendoza.
All right, Emory, a team total or a first half bet that you like. I'm going to go Indiana first half team total over 13.5. I just think Indiana's going to score 2 touchdowns, kick 2 extra points, and have 14 or more by the time we go to break. I think Indiana is going to be able to move the ball, and I think they're going to be able to move the ball to get some chunk plays through the air because of the injuries and the fact that Xavier Lucas is going to be out in the secondary. Charlie Becker, who is the third option to Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt in the Indiana passing game, is a tremendous third fiddle receiver, and I think he takes advantage, and Indiana is able to move the ball through the air.
I like that as well, Rich. We're seeing the game the same way because, again, a prop later on that I have could help us both cash. But I like Miami going over 9.5 in the first half as well. I think we'll see them get a touchdown and a field goal, 10 points at least. But I do like the fact that they can move the football. They have a strong kicker, in my opinion, who's kind of shaking that confidence, and now he's gotten back on the right side. I feel like he'll get one through the uprights. And Miami, if they're able to play efficient, drain the clock, shrink the ball game on their initial drive, then I could see them ending up with a touchdown on their first drive, i.e. Mark Fletcher, like you pointed out.
All right, Emory, another fun game prop for you. Give me Indiana defensive touchdown plus 600. I do think Indiana is going to turn Carson Beck over multiple times in this game. The fact that Miami is a team that does not really throw deep. A lot of what they do is screens. It's underneath stuff for Malachi Toney to get loose and break tackles. I think Indiana's going to be able to sit and squat on that, break on the ball with their zone eyes. They play a ton of zone defense, and a lot of their simulated pressures means you've got players dropping into places that you as Carson Beck are not expecting them to go post-snap. When that happens in the short areas of the field, give me Indiana to house one of these interceptions. Indiana defensive score, I believe, is going to cash Monday night.
Now they do throw deep. They just don't connect on of them because Carson Beck ain't accurate deep down the field. But you're right, man. Again, that's another good play by you because I can see that happening as well in this matchup. So therefore, because of all what we talked about so far in this block, I like both teams to score in each quarter of the ball game at plus 1,000. Richard, you know what that's going to net us? Putting some of your good hard-earned money on that, man, that's a huge return on our investment. See that pronoun trouble, our investment with your money. So you look at everybody's getting the touchdown or a field goal, just points in each quarter, whether it's on the defensive side, whether it's a special teams touchdown. As long as we get points from both teams in each quarter, plus 1,000 we cash.
And a player prop to take us home here. Give me Carson Beck passing touchdowns under 1.5. I just don't think Miami's really going to be scoring through the air here. Now, I am a little worried about a garbage time touchdown getting me if Indiana gets the nose out in front here, but I'll plug my nose and take it. Carson Beck passing touchdown under 1.5.
Give me Mark Fletcher over 66 and a half yards rushing. This feels rather low for me. Even last week's game was rather low. I think it was like at 74, something like that, and a half. And he definitely crushed that in the first half. So I feel like this is the one pathway Miami has to win this ball game is through the legs of Mark Fletcher. And I just love how he runs. He runs like the other team did him something personally because he is breaking tackles. He doesn't get tired. And he is the straw that stirs the drink. He gets the party rolling. Then Malachi Toney is the one that finishes it off. So I like Fletcher to go over this number because they have to have him over this number if they want to win the game.
Emory, let's do some more breakdown of this game quickly here. Some things that we haven't talked about. For instance, Indiana on offense. What they have at running back, two-headed monster with Roman Hemby, Keelan Black. They're different to Miami. Miami's that bell cow with Mark Fletcher, whereas Indiana's kind of sharing the wealth a little bit.
Yeah, and they don't need volume to be successful. And you like that in this era of college football. It's more of the norm than what we're seeing from Miami side. Miami is more of an old school approach to we have a bell cow. We're going to feed this guy the ball. Today's era of college football in the run game is more about tandems. And these guys aren't even built like they used to be like Fletcher. They're built more like what we're seeing with the Hoosiers. And so therefore, guys can come in there with 3 carries and do what they need to do, come back out and go back in, get another 2 carries and still have success. So I like that about them. They stay fresh. They stay explosive. Both guys are finishers around the goal line. That is what you love the most about those two tailbacks out there for Indiana.
Yeah, Miami, we talked about Miami's offense as well. We've talked about Mark Fletcher. We've talked about Malachi Toney. In the passing game, though, Emory, I think that Miami's wide receiver room just isn't as deep as Indiana's, which seems crazy to think about. But when you really break it down, you say, all right, if Indiana's able to, I say take away Toney. You're not really going to take away Malachi Toney. But if they're able to kind of hold him down, right, Indiana plays a ton of zone. Indiana isn't really going to try to man him up. Can you just rally up and tackle a lot of the short stuff that Toney's going to do? If you can do that, and Miami's got to pass the ball in this game, I don't really like their chances because of a lack of depth in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We talked about this when we were breaking down the Ohio State game. Those other receivers have to step up and make a play or two because you just have to assume, okay, this is the game plan coming in. No matter who's the opponent, we're going to bracket Toney. We're going to force him to move him around the formation. We're going to try to take him away and make these other guys beat us consistently. And if that's going to be the case in this ball game versus Indiana, Miami's going to need those other receivers to step up and make some plays over the middle of the field, which also works with Carson Beck having to move off the initial read, which is probably going to be Toney. Hey, man, work through that progression rather quickly and get to another target and get the ball to those receivers. So therefore, you can create those opportunities for Toney later in the ball game. So it's going to be not only on those other options at wide receiver, but Carson Beck as well.
Emory, I think Indiana's got a lot of different paths to win this game. If it's a shootout, I like Indiana. If it's in the mud, I also like Indiana. As far as we got to just be efficient and execute type game. What are the paths for Miami to win this game if Mark Fletcher doesn't run for like 200 yards, which I think is probably the obvious way that Miami could get this done?
Well, Toney is going to have to be a factor in the wide receiver run game. He's versatile enough to do so we'll see that. And Miami's going to have to go old school Miami Hurricane football and kind of impose their will on Indiana, whether that means a personal foul early in the ball game, try to get Indiana out of their game, rattle them a little bit, maybe sacrifice one player to go get kicked out the ball game. That's what you have to do to get in the head of a team that's locked in discipline and assignment sound and execute at a high level. I'm not advocating for that, but if it were me, I would say, hey, you, number 49 that plays defensive back, go knock this guy out, get up out the game. So therefore we get those guys rattled and thinking in terms of, man, we're afraid of Miami on the other side.
Yeah, I think Miami also play to the crowd. I know it's not going to be a deeply partisan Miami crowd of 50-50, but use the emotion. And Miami's going to have to respond after the first couple drives of the game, right? We saw Alabama, for instance, have some success against Indiana on the first couple drives of the game, and then Indiana clamped down, and it was game over. All right, we'll be right back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. One last time, Emory, it's been a great season with you and our guy, Brad Crawford, who's not with us this week. We've been breaking it down every Friday. Picks, props, blitz, all the times. We've had a ton of fun so far this season. We've won a lot and we've lost a lot, Emory. It has been a pleasure to be with you every Friday afternoon.
Pleasure was all mine, Richard, man. Go Cajuns, and make sure you have your pet spayed and neutered. Shout out to the late, great Bob Barker.
The Bob Barker reference is crazy. I will let Emory Hunt have the last word. We appreciate you for joining every Friday on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. I'm your host, Rich Johnson. For Emory Hunt and Brad Crawford, who's not with us this week, we'll see you next season.